The Shadowfell is a parallel plane of shadow and negative energy, serving as a dark reflection of the material plane and teeming with undead and sorrowful creatures. Unlike the vibrant Feywild, the Shadowfell is desolate and grim, marked by decay and death. Alternate names for the plane include the Shadowland, the Demi-Plane of Shadow, the Shadow Deep, or simply Shadow. It is believed that the plane of Shadow originated as a demi-plane. Such demi-planes form from protomatter flowing within the ethereal plane, taking shape when sufficient mass accumulates. Of these, the largest was known to be the demi-plane of Shadow, composed equally of positive and negative energy. From the ethereal plane, its boundary appeared as a curtain of silver-colored vapor. Wizards traveled directly to the edge of the Shadowfell using Shadow Walk spells, and other travelers used it as a transitional route to swiftly cover vast distances across the prime material. For those courageous enough to venture across the demi-plane of Shadow, it was possible to reach the borders of other planes. However, apart from these details, little was known about the demi-plane of Shadow, apart from its dreary, dim environment. However, following at least the Second Sundering, the Shadowfell appears to have adopted the characteristics of a parallel plane, a direct echo of the material plane, existing alongside it just as the Feywild does. The most immediate visual impression upon entering the plane of Shadow is the absence of both color and true light. There are no celestial bodies like stars, moons, or suns to break the monotony of the pitch-black sky. Everything appears drained of color, rendered only in stark shades of black and white through pervasive gloom. These appear as different intensities of darkness rather than distinct colors. Sources of illumination cast only half the brightness they usually would. Flames and fires burn weaker and produce significantly less heat. Spells involving fire or light behave unpredictably, often failing, while those that draw upon shadows become more potent. Despite diminished illumination, any source of light does stand out dramatically against the pervasive darkness, visible from far beyond its usual range. Even subtle sources like shadowy illumination from lanterns filled with shadowlight oil or the darkness spell's dim glow are distinctly noticeable from great distances due to the sharp contrast. Within the Shadowfell, gravity and the flow of time remain identical to conditions on the prime material plane. However, because the plane of Shadow is magically malleable and divinely influenced in areas aligned with entities like Shar and Mask, the terrain appears as a dark, distorted reflection of the prime material. Upon first arriving, the local geography closely mirrors the original setting. Forests translate into shadowy dead woods, and bodies of water are matched by their dark counterparts. Yet beyond that initial familiarity, the landscape rapidly diverges, shifting unpredictably with each subsequent visit, making navigation and reliable mapping impossible. Familiar landmarks remain discernible but are changed significantly, often appearing twisted, misplaced, or constructed with entirely different styles or materials. Structures might range from recognizable and intact to bizarrely altered or completely ruined. Such distorted reflections are sometimes referred to as shadow analogs. Due to this continuous shifting of terrain, the plane of Shadow experiences frequent yet minor earthquakes called shadowquakes. These disturbances visually resemble earthquakes occurring on the prime material plane, affecting relatively small areas. Those standing on the ground during a shadowquake experience effects comparable to a natural earthquake. Shadowquakes have the disruptive effect of abruptly terminating the Shadow Walk spell, forcing travelers into an unexpected and often unfamiliar location deep within the Shadowfell, far from their intended destination. Certain areas within the plane of Shadow show a clear connection to the negative energy plane and host undead creatures known to drain life force, such as shadows, ghosts, and vampires. These regions, called Darklands, radiate negative energy that immediately begins to sap the vitality from anyone unprotected who enters them. Visitors who fail to quickly escape such zones swiftly deteriorate until only a pile of ash remains. Those shielded from negative energy can linger to observe the total desolation and possibly encounter dangerous undead beings that inhabit these grim locales. Fortunately, no natural vortex connects directly into these Darkland regions, sparing unwary travelers from inadvertently stepping into near certain death and preventing the hostile creatures from within from easily reaching other planes. On the Shadowfell, places that correspond to haunted battlefields, corrupted burial grounds, or sites of necromantic power on the material plane often manifest as Darkland regions. Less immediately deadly, yet deeply disturbing, echoes also appear in regions corresponding to towns and cities of the material plane. These reflections are intangible mirages rather than physical threats, yet familiar people and locations can be glimpsed through the unsettling distortions of the Shadowfell and produce profound unease. buildings can appear strangely modified, displaced, completely destroyed, or even replaced with entirely different structures. Apparitions resembling people from the material plane are distorted into nightmarish versions of themselves, still recognizable enough to unsettle horrified visitors. Despite its bleakness, the plane of shadow sustains basic forms of life, offering air, water, and food capable of supporting shadow-adapted plants, animals, and humanoids. Outsiders can theoretically survive indefinitely, provided they tolerate repulsive, blood-seeping food, thick, foul-tasting water, and persistently cold air. Visitors find that warmth remains forever out of reach no matter how hard they try to make themselves comfortable, and they experience unsettling sensations, such as hearing phantom noises or feeling unseen presences persistently. The pervasive atmosphere instills a constant discomfort. Prolonged exposure to this shadow-infused environment alters living creatures, enhancing certain innate traits and abilities, but also leaving them with specific vulnerabilities. Emotions and the capacity to feel them gradually diminish for being suffused with the essence of the shadow. The morphic nature of the Shadowfell causes strange phenomena, particularly in highly malleable regions like the Black Rift and in places closely tied to certain events, especially death. In the Black Rift, for example, accumulations of corpses spontaneously generate even more skeletons, rapidly multiplying until thousands cover the ground. Even stranger, mysterious funeral platforms sometimes spontaneously appear, briefly holding dead bodies pulled seemingly from any location across existence before vanishing again moments later, presumably returning them to their points of origin. Elsewhere, caves contain stalactites that drip shadowy material known as shadow stuff, which evaporates back into the plane itself instead of forming puddles. Ordinary-looking mushrooms carry disturbingly realistic human faces, occasionally twitching or blinking. Additionally, in some areas, surfaces sprout forests of grasping black tendrils that actively reach toward travelers, similar in appearance and behavior to magical black tentacles. The substance known as shadow stuff can also be shaped by illusionists to create partially tangible creatures and semi-real magical effects. These conjured illusions remain somewhat effective even if their intended victims recognize their illusory nature, retaining a lesser but tangible impact. Illusionists wield another shadow-related spell called Shadowwell, which transforms a person's shadow into a short-lived portal into the Shadowfell. When successfully cast, the spell pulls a victim through their own shadow, temporarily trapping them in a tiny pocket dimension attached to the Shadowfell. Inside the isolated space, they experience terrifying visions and illusions. While no direct physical harm occurs during this brief imprisonment, lasting emotional trauma and fear often result. Attempts to establish stable gates to the Shadowfell occasionally fail, resulting in what are known as failed shadow gates. A creature stepping through such a flawed gateway briefly enters the plane of shadow, but even this fleeting contact implants a seed of shadow within their body. The shadow seed gradually causes the victim's flesh to dissolve into a shadowy mist, and many who suffer this fate die, leaving behind only skeletal remains. Those who survive the transformation instead gain abilities and characteristics of shadow-infused dark creatures. The earliest known conscious interaction between the peoples of Toril and the Plane of Shadow occurred during the era of the Imiskari Empire, around -3500 DR. In the late period of Imiskar, the archwizard Madriak, the Ebon Flame, became deeply interested in uncovering the secrets of the Shadowfell. He intended to harness its dark powers to overthrow Lord Artificer Omenond, but a young adept named Hilather successfully disrupted his ambitions. Knowledge of the Shadowfell's existence was presumably forgotten following the Imiskari Empire's collapse because, roughly 3,000 years later, in the year of the Plentiful Wine, -533, Netherese scholars rediscovered the plane and started examining its properties. In 1235, the Black Horde launched an assault on Faerun. During their campaign, they fought against the defeated Eldrith the Betrayer, who became infamous for betraying Baldur's Gate. Following her death, Eldrith returned to life, reborn from the sheer intensity of her hatred. This profound hatred led to the creation of the Onyx Tower, a structure directly linked to Eldrith's life force. Its heart, the Onyx Heart, existed in the Plane of Shadow. Consequently, destroying the tower required destroying its shadow-bound core. Later in the year of Wild Magic 1372, an adventurer and their companions explored the ruined Netherese city of Undrentide. Inside the Arcanist Tower, the adventurers accidentally stepped through portals leading to Undrentide's dark reflection on the Shadowfell, where they encountered shades. To avoid certain disaster, an adventurer eventually escaped by traveling back to the Plane of Shadow through the use of a magical mirror. Although the souls of the dead did not naturally begin traveling to the Shadow Plane until after Shar altered its nature during the Spell Plague, it was still possible before this event for souls to be trapped there. Notably, in 1373, during the Year of Rogue Dragons, a group of wizards aligned with the Lich Samaster trapped the ghoul Gareth Dragonsbane, King of Damara, within the Plane of Shadow. King Gareth's soul was ultimately freed the next year by a force of paladins led by the smoke drake known as Brimstone. The unique and unusual nature of the Plane of Shadow has led cosmologists, travelers, and scholars to speculate extensively about its origins. Some have proposed that the Plane of Shadow spontaneously emerged as a demiplane, formed out of the raw material of the ethereal plane. However, among cosmologists and planewalkers, a favorite topic of speculation has long been the legend known as the Shining Citadel. According to this legend, the Plane of Shadow was originally bright and vibrant, much like the material plane. At some remote point in the past, a mysterious group devoted to the plane's creator supposedly gathered all the color, brightness, and nearly all the plane's vitality into a single magnificent structure called the Shining Citadel. One might assume that a fortress containing the majority of an entire plane's life force would be impossible to overlook, yet nobody has ever successfully located the Shining Citadel. As the story goes, perhaps only those who journey deep into the most remote and dangerous corners of the Plane of Shadow, never to return, could truly discover its existence. Some scholars have also theorized that the Underdark is effectively limitless because it gradually transitions directly into the Plane of Shadow. The main support for this theory is the increased frequency of permanent portals to the Shadowfell encountered by explorers the deeper they venture into the depths beneath the surface. Despite its constantly shifting nature, there are several recognizable landmarks in the Shadowfell. The Shadow Swamp is the counterpart to Cormyr's vast swamp on the material plane. As befitting the Plane of Shadow, the Shadow Swamp is a darker, more sinister reflection of its material plane equivalent, perpetually cloaked in night. It is a wide, sprawling, flooded forest filled with dense stands of black cypress and moss-covered blue-leaf trees. The primary waterway of the swamp is known as the Whispermere, a quiet, sluggish channel winding through the swampland, comprising numerous smaller creeks, winding sloughs, and open stretches of water. The Whispermere forms wide and deep bayous, although not all are navigable. The water is cold, almost motionless, and obscured by floating debris, peat, submerged logs, and cypress stumps. Visibility beneath the surface is limited. Shallow bogs commonly lie between open water and firmer ground. A series of low hills and steep bluffs run south to north through the swamp, dividing it. These elevated areas are densely covered in briars, copses, and thick clusters of trees. To the east lies an extensive region of flooded forest, which has largely been unexplored. Numerous trails meander through the swamp, crossing hammocks and connecting points of varying significance. Though many trails lead nowhere in particular, they tend to be muddy and slippery, making travel difficult. Crude wooden footbridges and fallen logs cross smaller streams, while skiffs left nearby aid in traversing larger bodies of water. Traveling away from the trails quickly becomes challenging due to the thick brush, marshy ground, and tangled undergrowth. Trails less frequently traveled are particularly overgrown and difficult to navigate. Despite the paths, the fastest means of crossing the Shadow Swamp is by boat along waterways like the Whispermere. To facilitate navigation, Sharans established channel markers between the Shadow Citadel and the Monastery of the Ebon Dome. These markers are bullseye lanterns burning shadowlight oil, producing a faint yet visible glow within the swamp's darkness. When traveling by water, one sees only the lantern immediately ahead and the one behind. Departing from this lit route reduces movement to a slow crawl, as travelers must carefully seek safe passage through the gloom. The Shadow Swamp rose to prominence during the early 1370s when worshippers of Shar and their Shadar Kai and Shadowscale allies established a stronghold there. The Shadar Kai sorcerer Theravan reopened a planar portal known as the Dusklord's Passage, reconnecting the lost refuge to the Shadow Citadel. At the same time, the sorcerer Sithiarel guided the Black Dragon Despair to the Black Rift, where they initiated a powerful ritual aimed at ripping apart the magical weave. Shar worshippers secured both the Shadow Citadel and the Monastery of the Ebon Dome, while the Shadowscales constructed their fortified warren and numerous smaller outposts across the swamp. Creatures potentially dwelling within the swamp include cloakers, dark nagas, giant crocodiles, metal masters, ochre jellies, and will-o-wisps. Native Shadowfell creatures such as dusk beasts, shadow mastiffs, undead shadows, and darker variants of Ahuitzels, giant octopuses, hydrae, and trolls may also inhabit the swamp. Aggressive plant life such as assassin vines and dark trees also pose an additional threat. However, during the period of around 1374, when the Shar worshippers and their allies occupied the Shadow Swamp, such dangers were rarely known to encroach upon their paths or waterways. Through intimidation or violence, the Shadar Kai and their undead Shadowscales taught these swamp inhabitants to stay clear of their routes and operations. With the eventual defeat of the Shadowscale war chief and their central warren, the tribe fragmented into isolated, disorganized bands scattered across the swamp, becoming desperate and weakened in the aftermath. The Shadowscale Warren is a village and mound fort constructed by the Shadowscale tribe of lizard folk within the Shadow Swamp. The mound itself is constructed around a massive, tangled deadfall of fallen trees, branches, mossy logs, and splintered stumps. Gaps and openings are filled with underbrush and mud in a crude wattle and daub style. The structure incorporates several still-living trees, and at its northern edge, a log-built boat landing connects directly to a dark lake adjoining the Whispermere. This landing is regularly used by the vessel Nekrime to transport Shar and visitors and captives. Two primary entrances, including a back door reserved for a shambling mound, are typically used. Numerous concealed passages, gaps, and even underwater tunnels provide alternate entry points. The mound's crude construction allows intruders to hack their way through walls or roofs if necessary. The inside of the warren consists of a maze-like network of cramped tunnels, crawl spaces, and irregular chambers connected by low, muddy passages. Roots and branches protrude from walls, ceilings, and floors, obstructing movement. Some chambers still contain living trees that serve as ceiling supports, while floors are often damp and uneven, occasionally flooded with shallow black water pools. Guard chambers near each entrance house Shadowscale marauders who defend the warren. These guards maintain jars containing small vipers and sturges, which they throw at attackers. Other beasts used for protection include caged lesser Nell beetles and giant crocodiles drawn from the lake by War Chief Cossander. A shambling mound roams freely, performing dual roles as guardian and refuse disposal, accompanied by shocker lizards feeding on its leftovers. Swarms of centipedes infest the interior, ready to be unleashed upon intruders. The Shadow Citadel is the ironic name given to a ruined keep within the Shadow Swamp in the Plane of Shadow. It exists as the shadowy reflection of a similarly ruined keep known as the Lost Refuge, located in Cormyre's vast swamp on the material plane. The Citadel occupies a small island surrounded by the swamp's dense forest, primarily composed of black cypress and moss-covered blue-leaf trees. Encircling the structure are slow-moving waterways and broad, shallow bayous. These waters are cold, dark, and laden with debris and peat. Most of the keep is constructed from thick, mortared stone walls, with sturdy wooden floors, frequently swollen and stuck in the damp conditions. The keep's condition is one of significant decay. As the Plane of Shadow's reflection on the already ruined Lost Refuge, the Shadow Citadel is even more severely dilapidated. Its roof has largely collapsed, walls crumble or are entirely missing, and defensive perimeter walls have long since disappeared. Cracked and weathered statues dot the interior, and remaining wooden doors flake and rot. The keep is dimly illuminated by muted continual flame torches placed on wooden rods both inside and outside the structure. At the heart of the Citadel lies its primary chamber, the Great Hall. Once grand, its elegant columns have collapsed into rubble, and the once arched ceiling now lies in pieces on the floor. The hall contains damaged statues of various Cormyrean royalty from the 13th century. Central to the Great Hall is the Dusk Lord's Passage, appearing as a large glowing orb. This portal connects the Shadow Citadel directly with the Lost Refuge on the material plane. Near the southern end of the keep, the original entry rooms have nearly completely collapsed, their walls reduced to mere fragments and heaps of rubble exposed to open air. Strangely intact in the ruin is the Great Tower, a large octagonal structure with shuttered windows absent from its material plane counterpart. Chains allow these shutters to open and close. The upper chamber's walls are carved with depictions of a starry sky, oddly resembling an observatory or astrolabe, a strange feature within the Shadowfell starless night. This upper level houses the mysterious Dusk Lord's throne, guarded by powerful unseen entities. In the southern corner of the ruins, remnants of a gatehouse remain, roughly patched with wood planks to form a makeshift lean-to. This crude enclosure functions as a holding area for captured prisoners, containing makeshift cages and posts to tie prisoners securely. The Shadow Citadel came into prominence in the early 1370s, when Shar's followers sought to dominate the vast swamp on both planes. Their goal was to rip apart the magical weave, creating a large dead magic zone to serve as their base. The base became a critical staging area for the cult's activities in Cormyre, which included kidnapping operations at Weloon's false temple of Mystra and the imprisonment of captive lizard folk destined for undeath among the Shadowscales. Shar's followers knew of the mysterious Dusk Lord's throne and its potential power, but after a failed attempt cost one of their acolytes their life, they refrained from disturbing it further until they could handle its formidable guardians. During its use, the Shadow Citadel primarily functioned as a transit hub, crucial to their plan, but too ruined for prolonged occupation. The main activity of the Citadel was the handling and transfer of prisoners. Although the Citadel once housed valuable Cormyrean treasures, these items were looted and taken to Shadowscale Warren, leaving little of worth behind in the ruined keep itself. There are many creatures which are either native to or frequently inhabit the Shadowfell. Dark Creepers are a humanoid race native to the Underdark, characterized by their natural stealth ability and shadowy powers. They represent one of the two subraces that comprise the Dark Ones. Physically, Dark Creepers are small and slender humanoids with a stunted appearance. Their most distinctive feature is their legs resembling a goat, which end in small black hooves instead of conventional feet. These soft hooves allow them to move silently, even over stone surfaces. Their skin is pale, and their facial features include a large nose, bushy eyebrows, and small, sinister-looking eyes. Dark Creepers always wear black, cloaking themselves completely with hoods, wraps, turbans, and cloaks. They typically equip themselves with leather armor and wield weapon size for their stature, favoring daggers, short swords, or small longbows. Dark Creepers possess supernatural stealth abilities. They can shroud themselves in magical darkness, rendering them effectively invisible even in bright illumination, unless observers possess the ability to see through magical darkness. They also have heightened senses, relying on acute hearing, smell, and especially sight, allowing almost perfect vision in complete darkness. Exposure to daylight, however, natural or magical, disorients and demoralizes them severely. They also exhibit remarkable agility and evasion, making them particularly elusive foes. Generally, they attack any individual carrying a light source such as a torch, lantern, or magical light. They typically ignore those who pass by quietly without artificial lighting. When forced into combat, Dark Creepers are cowardly but exceptionally skilled in ambush tactics. They usually attack from concealment, seeking opportunities to deliver devastating sneak attacks by surprising or flanking their victims. They prefer absolute darkness during battle and retreat quickly if combat turns against them. They fight silently, and even their deaths evoke only quiet gasps. Dark Creeper society is structured around leadership from the second Dark One subrace, the Dark Stalkers. Typically, a Dark Stalker leads a small group of 2 to 5 Dark Creepers. Entire Dark One tribes are rarely known to number more than 100 individuals, usually consisting of around 20 to 80 Dark Creepers guided by 2 to 5 Dark Stalkers. Outside the Prime Material, Dark Creepers are known to inhabit the domains of Dread and presumably also the Shadowfell. Dark Creepers speak their own language, called Dark One, and can understand both Undercommon and Common. As a people, they remain mysterious even to other inhabitants of the Underdark, preferring isolation except when stealing valuables or protecting their lairs from intrusion. In the year of lightning storms 1374, clerics of Shar employed a band of Dark Ones, including 4 Dark Creepers led by a Dark Stalker, as mercenaries. Stationed within the tomb of Chonus in Cormyre, their role was to guard and observe petitioners traveling between Weloon's false temple of Mystra and the lost refuge of the vast swamp. Adventurers investigating the cultist activities encountered these mercenaries. Another notable Dark Creeper in history was Dara, a female crime lord active in Loudwater's criminal underworld in the late 15th century, although nothing specific is known. Sorrowsworn are shadowy creatures manifesting from the Shadowfell itself. Some represent emotional suffering caused by the realm's oppressive environment. Each emotion gives rise to distinct forms. The angry embody rage and conflict, with the 2 arguing heads and hooked hands. The hungry symbolize insatiable cravings, featuring wide jaws and grasping claws. The lonely reflect isolation, having extendable harpoon-like arms to drag others close. The lost represent fear and anxiety, with 5 spiked limbs that clutch desperately, and the wretched embody misery, appearing as small, pitiful creatures bristling with sharp teeth. Other Sorrowsworn represent death itself, resembling undead or demons cloaked in dark robes. They include stealthy assassins called Soul Rippers, savage warriors known as Reapers, and imposing leaders named Deathlords. The angry Sorrowsworn draw strength from aggression, growing tougher as they are hurt or challenged but weakening when ignored. Their dual heads grant them acute senses and resistance to mental disruptions. Hungry Sorrowsworn endlessly seek to devour life energy, flesh, and even victims' screams, becoming increasingly violent when observing healing or rejuvenation. Lonely Sorrowsworn yearn for connection, forcibly pulling victims toward them with their harpoon-like limbs to cause psychic pain upon close contact. They become stronger near multiple victims. Similarly, the lost crave comfort, desperately grasping victims with their spiked arms, overwhelming them with fear and psychic harm intensified by attempts at rescue. Wretched Sorrowsworn drain life through bites, latching onto victims to feed until forcibly removed, typically attacking in large groups. All Shadowsworn are more resilient in shadowy or dark environments. Death Sorrowsworn have terrifying appearances that inspire fear, weakening the will of their enemies. In combat, Sorrowsworn fight using their natural weapons and abilities. Emotion-based Sorrowsworn compulsively inflict their embodied feelings upon those they encounter, wandering ceaselessly until finding optimal targets. They are strengthened by victims surrendering to these emotions and weakened by resistance and defiance. Individuals who die consumed by these feelings in the Shadowfell sometimes rise as Sorrowsworn. Death Sorrowsworn feed on residual feelings of grief, sorrow, and loss, appearing near battlefields, graveyards, and sites of great tragedy. They lurk in ruins, feeding on the despair present there. Their lairs are bleak, often caves or thorn-filled pits containing grim trophies and scattered remains. Death Sorrowsworn often serve the Raven Queen, acting as heralds of doom, agents sent to collect souls who evade death, and guardians of the Shadowfell. They protect her interests against Nightwalkers and death giants who defy her rule. Created by the Raven Queen from Shadar or other servants desiring immortality, a select few serve her as elite Raven Knights, residing primarily in the Fountain of Loss. However, most Death Sorrowsworn are independent, dwelling in abandoned ruins without taking up permanent residence. Death Sorrowsworn occasionally form cooperative groups when necessary, allying with other creatures if it serves their interests. Some may ride fell wyverns or command flocks of shadow ravens, ethereal black avian creatures who harass foes with necrotic talons. Shadow ravens protect Sorrowsworn lairs and gather at sites of death, scavenging from corpses. Without Sorrowsworn direction, shadow ravens behave like most ordinary birds. In the distant past, Death Sorrowsworn waged war against the Nightwalkers, significantly altering parts of the Shadowfell until the Nightwalkers retreated into its darkest recesses. During Corlon's ancient conflict with Lolth, the Raven Queen sent Death Sorrowsworn to battle Lolth's corrupted elves and demons. After the Spell Plague of 1385, a group of Death Sorrowsworn occupied a destroyed Temple of Helm in Chesenta, attracted by great suffering happening there. They guarded a mysterious force they believed was gestating beneath the ruins, but were later destroyed by the Draco Lich Alaskler Bastos, who sought this hidden power, yet found nothing. By the 1490s, members of the Dolendar wizard family trapped in the Shadowfell arose as Sorrowsworn in their family tomb of Evernight. The matriarch Kavetta Dolendar became a lonely Sorrowsworn due to intense isolation, while her children Evisha and Nolan became lost Sorrowsworn, embodying their anxiety and confusion. Nightwalkers are undead beings known as Nightshades, originating from the Shadowfell. They are malevolent, unnatural entities embodying darkness and death, deriving pleasure from corrupting others and causing suffering. Their appearance is roughly humanoid, but their form consists of a shadowy substance. They stand approximately as tall as a small house, smooth-skinned and entirely hairless. Nightwalkers arise from exceptionally malevolent mortals whose sheer force of will and ancient evil permit their consciousness to maintain a single tangible shape after death. Some scholars suggest an alternate origin, that the beings emerge from the negative energy plane. Those who unsuccessfully attempt to draw power from that plane may vanish, being replaced by a Nightwalker, which would explain their frequent presence in the Shadowfell due to its connection with the negative energy plane. Nightwalkers can transform humans that they have slain into Bodaks through rituals harnessing the Shadowfell's void energy. This transformation can occur exclusively on the Shadowfell plane. Darklings are cursed fey creatures, compelled to absorb all surrounding light, a process that rapidly ages them. Typically, they dress in clothing covering their entire bodies to shield themselves from light exposure. Elders among Darklings transform into taller, fairer beings resembling gray-skinned elves. Despite their ominous condition, Darklings are not inherently evil, although they disregard laws and frequently become thieves or assassins. They retain an appreciation for nature and art, occasionally risking harm to briefly experience light, such as seeing a sunset or admiring colorful jewels or artwork. Darklings have both dark vision and blind sight, but their vision weakens significantly in bright illumination. They possess limited innate magic, however, elders are known to cast darkness spells. When a Darkling dies, all the absorbed light from its life is released explosively, burning its body and all non-metal, non-magical possessions to ash and blinding nearby creatures. Elders' death flashes are especially powerful, capable of inflicting damage in addition to blindness. Typically, Darklings favor arming themselves with daggers, whereas Elders prefer short swords. They establish settlements in isolated caves or chambers hidden beneath other communities. Elders who demonstrate wisdom may undergo a ritual involving luminous tattoos, redirecting some absorbed light away from their bodies. If successful, this transforms them into Darkling Elders. If it fails, they die. Legend states that the Darkling lineage originated from a Seelie Fae named Dubkatha, known as the Dark Crow, who was cursed by the Summer Queen after betraying her. His descendants became known as Dubsi, or the Darklings. Shadows are undead incorporeal beings without physical bodies. They appear nearly invisible in darkness, but become easier to see in brightly lit areas. Their shapes roughly mirror their original humanoid form, although they lack physical weight. Shadows harbor hatred for both living beings and sources of light, aggressively targeting morally upright and innocent victims. Their touch drains strength, although they feed entirely on negative energy and don't require this draining to survive. However, prolonged denial of this craving can drive them into a frenzy and compel them to attack recklessly. In combat, shadows hide in darkness, ambushing passing creatures. They can fly, slip through narrow openings, and their chilling touch weakens targets. A victim loses strength, their own shadow darkens until, upon death, it separates and rises as a new shadow under the control of its creator. Shadows often appear individually or in groups, hiding in dark areas like ruins. Some have been observed in Mithril Hall. In some regions, such as the Cursed Lands near Moonrise Towers around Baldur's Gate, shadows proliferate due to supernatural afflictions. Beyond the mortal world, they appear in realms like the Abyss and the Shadowfell, or areas linked to the negative energy plane. Certain deities, including drow gods like Kieran Sali and Veyrun, and the deity Shar, employ shadows as servants. Clerics of Shar, known as Nightcloaks, sometimes summon them. Shadows also featured notably in rituals among the Chultan Esho followers of Esho Dao. One prominent shadow was Alana Striana Galanodel, an elf adventurer slain by a shadow shortly after Netherrealm's fall. Freed when her killer was destroyed, she later joined an army of emancipated undead warriors known as Wandshades, fighting against Netherrealm's numerous undead in the year of Wandshades, -306. Allips are incorporeal undead entities, remnants of individuals who descended into madness and ended their lives. They appear as ghostly reflections of their living selves, their features twisted into nightmarish expressions of insanity. From the waist downward, their forms dissolve into a faint shadowy mist. They drift silently through the air, continuously murmuring in an unintelligible and maddening babble. These undead beings seek revenge upon those whom they perceive caused their mental collapse, swinging wildly at any creature they encounter. Unaware of their ability to cause physical harm, they continue their furious but ineffectual attacks. Their constant murmuring is known to have a hypnotic effect on nearby creatures within a short distance, pulling them into a similar state of insanity. Allips gain strength by draining sanity from any creature they touch, amplifying their own madness. Telepathic attempts to read an Alip's mind transfer insanity into the intruder. In combat, Allips begin hypnotizing as many opponents as possible through their incessant murmuring. They focus their attention on unaffected enemies, attempting to drain their sanity through direct touch. Allips rarely retreat or flee from danger. They are resistant to physical harm from non-magical weapons as well as damage from fire, lightning, thunder, and acid. Cold, necrotic energies, and poisons also have no effect on them. They cannot be charmed, frightened, exhausted, petrified, paralyzed, or restrained. Some scholars speculate that they arise when individuals uncover secrets belonging to powerful beings, resulting in curses that destroy their physical bodies and leave only a shattered spectral form behind. The incomprehensible whispers of Allips are thought to contain fragments of these dangerous secrets, causing listeners to become obsessed with discovering the same forbidden knowledge. Allips possess an insatiable hunger for sanity, draining victims until they are left catatonic, although they do not require sustenance for survival. Typically solitary, they occasionally form hordes in locations of mass destruction, appearing as rolling clouds of wailing, whispering apparitions at night. Such hordes remain close to their original mass graves. They frequent urban areas, swamps, and underground cities, including regions such as the Underdark, the Chanath Vale, Hallara, Dombroth, Aglarond, Altumbel, Thay, Ashanoth, and the Great Dale. They are also found beyond the material plane in the Shadowfell. There was once a notorious Allip infestation in the Narendil estate near Morinay in Impiltor, where a mass grave created a nightly horde of these spectral beings. Banshees are female undead phantoms, known as groaning sprites or wailing ghosts, embodying ugliness and selfishness. They originate mostly from spirits of elven women who live malicious lives. Their form is incorporeal and misty, vaguely humanoid, echoing their former appearance, although distorted by undeath. Over time, their shape grows increasingly grotesque. These undead beings are driven by a hatred for all living things and aggressively seek to destroy life. Merely by existing, Banshees drain the energy from their surroundings, stunting plant growth around them. They haunt isolated moors, wilderness, and abandoned areas, attacking any intruders. In combat, they rely primarily on a devastating, piercing wail capable of causing death to anyone who hears it. Their chilling touch drains life energy from victims. Variants of Banshees exist in distant regions, such as the fairy hags of the Utter East. These entities mourn destruction done to nature, harming civilized beings who encounter them. They possess white hair, blue skin, and are known to float slightly above ground or water and be unable or unwilling to enter structures. Banshees retain the languages they spoke in life, often including Common and Elvish. A noted instance of Banshee transformation involved 3 drow, Charinda, Gazthray, and Trislin, punished by Lolth for their vanity, cursing them to become Banshees. Revenants are undead creatures driven by a powerful compulsion to pursue and kill those responsible for their deaths. Physically, they resemble emaciated and decaying versions of their former selves, bearing open wounds, drawn and clammy skin, and an overall corpse-like appearance. Their bodies, sustained by supernatural energy, reform even if completely destroyed. Revenants usually have vacant, lifeless eyes, but when they encounter their killers, their eyes burn fiercely with an unnatural glow. Revenants possess a relentless urge to exact revenge on their murderers, paying little attention to others unless they were also involved in the killing, although such accomplices remain secondary targets. The Revenant retains most abilities from its previous life, bolstered by enhanced strength and an intimidating presence. They are highly resistant to harm, immune to acid, gas, cold, electricity, and polymorph, and ordinary weapons struggle to harm them. Their existence is limited, enduring only until they achieve vengeance or until approximately 1 year passes, after which they crumble to dust. If it completes its goal of revenge before this time limit, it immediately collapses, its spirit departing to the afterlife. Revenants rapidly heal from injuries, although fire-inflicted wounds resist this accelerated healing. They possess an innate ability to locate their killers if on the same plane of existence. Upon first encountering their murderer, a Revenant's glowing gaze can paralyze their target. Their attacks against their killers are especially vicious and damaging. Nagpas are cursed beings transformed into bird-like, twisted humanoid creatures by the Raven Queen, punishing them for disrupting divine rituals long ago. Once beautiful and powerful wizards, Nagpas now have hunched, scabrous bodies reminiscent of birds. They hide in the shadowy secrecy of the Shadowfell, scheming to provoke disasters and calamities to loot magical secrets from ruins and fallen civilizations. Their appearance inspires revulsion, their forms permanently reflecting this curse. Nagpas fear the Raven Queen deeply, avoiding her attention wherever possible. If confronted by her or her agents, they quickly adopt a subservient and craven attitude. The 13 original Nagpas still survive due to their cunning nature and ruthless willingness to do whatever is necessary to continue their own existence. Due to their curse, Nagpas are unable to acquire knowledge or magic from normal sources. Instead, they must orchestrate devastating events, exploiting the chaos and ruins left behind to plunder lost lore and arcane power. Expert manipulators, Nagpas subtly influence others, creating puppet-like accomplices unwittingly aiding in their schemes. They maintain multiple intricate plans at different stages simultaneously, revealing themselves only when success is imminent, relishing the ruin they've engineered. Shadow dragons are true dragons, either native to the Shadowfell or transformed by prolonged exposure to its environment. Their bodies appear insubstantial, with dark, translucent scales that let them blend into shadows effectively. Often mistaken for black dragons, shadow dragons have distinct backward curving horns, prominent spinal fringes along their necks, and fin-like structures on their powerful tails. Their eggs, when held against strong white light, reveal a distinctive purple hue. Intellectually formidable and exceptionally cunning, shadow dragons match or surpass even red and gold dragons in cleverness. Physically, however, they are weaker than most dragons, possessing less raw strength even at advanced ages compared to the chromatics. Shadow dragons employ stealth, stalking prey silently, often blending effortlessly into darkness. Their breath weapon is a shadowy cone capable of draining a victim's vitality, skills, and spells and temporarily strengthening the dragon. Victims slain by their breath weapon can become spectral creatures permanently enslaved to the dragon. As they age, shadow dragons gain magic for stealth, mobility, and deception, including spells like Mirror Image, Dimension Door, Non-Detection, and Shadow Walk. The oldest shadow dragons can envelop wide areas in impenetrable magical darkness, completely blinding creatures not tied to the Shadowfell. Shadow dragons reside primarily in underground locales, deep ruins, abandoned keeps, and dark areas like the Underdark, particularly its lower levels, where connections to the plane of shadow are the strongest. Historically, shadow dragons occasionally ally themselves with organizations such as the Cult of the Dragon. They maintain associations with the drow deity Veyrune and the Chultan demigod Eshadau, occasionally serving as agents for these beings. Shadow Mastiffs, also known as Shadow Hounds, are monstrous black dogs native to the plane of shadow. Each Mastiff stands roughly waist-high to a human, weighing about as much as a fully armored warrior. Their bodies resemble massive dogs, although their heads appear vaguely humanoid, distorted and monstrous, with mouths lined with razor-sharp teeth. Their smooth, pitch-black coats allow them to blend seamlessly into the darkness. These creatures despise bright illumination and react violently if exposed to it, emitting furious howls. Shadow Mastiffs become practically invisible in shadows, undetectable except in direct daylight. They possess a terrifying bay that can cause panic among all but the most courageous beings within a considerable radius. Their exceptional sense of smell makes them superb trackers. They prefer attacking from darkness, using their stealth to ambush victims. If faced with magical illumination, they retreat into darkness or try to remove or destroy the light source. Their only physical attack is a powerful bite, and they often attempt to knock their prey prone to better exploit vulnerabilities. Packs usually number 5 to 12, although individual mastiffs or smaller pairs are also commonly encountered. Their young are highly sensitive to bright light, which can kill them if exposed. Their blood is pure black. Believed by some scholars to originally be dogs killed by undead shadows, shadow mastiffs inhabit eternally dark regions like the Shadow Swamp on the plane of shadow. While they cannot speak, they understand languages such as Common. Their pups are sometimes captured and sold in the plane's city markets. An Umbral Blot, commonly called a black ball, is a mysterious and deadly flying construct resembling a perfectly smooth sphere of pure darkness, approximately the height of a human. Inert, they appear identical to a sphere of annihilation, although they are significantly more dangerous. Their movements seem erratic, but when sensing intelligent life around them, they swiftly move to consume it. They possess extraordinary intelligence, comprehending only an ancient language of forgotten gods. Occasionally, those wielding a talisman of the sphere attempt to control them, only for the black ball to pretend it's obedient before violently retaliating later. Umbral Blots effortlessly devour or disintegrate anything they touch, whether creatures or objects, and fly rapidly. Their blind sight covers a broad radius, detecting prey effortlessly. Highly resistant or immune to nearly all forms of physical and magical damage, including disintegration, they regenerate damage freely and traverse planes using dimensional travel abilities. Physical weapons shatter upon contact, and only powerful artifacts might unpredictably affect them. A wish spell or carefully planned gate might banish or redirect them temporarily, and a Rod of Cancellation could briefly immobilize them at the cost of its destruction. In combat, black balls simply advance, absorbing everything in their path. Against evasive prey, they strategically approach from unexpected angles, even passing through floors or ceilings. If a target proves to be particularly elusive, the black ball releases an aura that creates a powerful vacuum which pulls victims towards itself. The origins of Umbral Blots remain mysterious. Ancient texts hint that elder gods created them as assassins or messengers, only for the black balls to ultimately destroy their own creators. Rumors speculate connections between the black balls and nightshade creatures, possibly as related stages of development, but no mortal has ever witnessed more than a single black ball at a time. Bodaks are undead beings formed when humanoids are destroyed by exposure to absolute evil, often by deadly creatures like Nightwalkers. They retain a vague resemblance to their living forms, appearing muscular and humanoid but stripped of distinguishing characteristics like gender. Their skin is pale, white, or gray, entirely hairless, and their facial features are contorted into expressions of perpetual madness and horror, dominated by unsettling, milky white oval eyes. These creatures possess minimal remnants of their former selves, occasionally experiencing brief moments of recollection from their past lives, particularly during battle. Such moments can distract a Bodak, temporarily hindering its effectiveness in combat if triggered by an enemy. Bodaks exhibit several powerful supernatural abilities. Their most feared weapon is a deadly gaze capable of harming and outright killing weakened creatures from distances up to several paces away. Victims who survive this gaze may experience terrifying visions of their own death. Those who succumb often rise later as Bodaks themselves. They emanate an aura of death, harming or weakening any living beings who approach. Like many undead, they avoid sunlight, vulnerable to the intensity of bright light. In combat, they usually adopt a defensive posture, relying heavily upon their lethal gaze. They rarely engage in conventional melee attacks, although a specialized variant known as a Bodak Reaver often wields a heavy weapon like a great axe and wears armor into battle. Bodaks do not require sustenance and thus never consume food or drink. Typically encountered within the Abyss or the Shadowfell, they occasionally appear on the Prime Material Plane, summoned by evil magic users, or sometimes dwell within deeper regions of the Underdark. They commonly ally with other undead, such as ghouls, wights, and even powerful entities like demi-liches. They share strong connections to the darkness of the Shadowfell, and are notably favored by Bishaba, a deity associated with misfortune and bad luck. Shadar Kai are immortal elves bound to the Shadowfell after the fall of the Raven Queen, who they serve. In the Shadowfell, they appear as withered, almost corpse-like elves with wrinkled skin and swollen joints, although in other planes they look more youthful. Their hair is pale and their skin has a deathly pallor no matter the location. They prefer to wear cloaks and veils, often wearing masks of wood or metal to conceal their faces. They are mournful and joyless, neither benevolent nor malevolent, and they are not inclined to follow rules. Shadar Kai are hardier than other elves and possess resistance to necrotic energy. Some teleport short distances, a gift from the Raven Queen. Like other elves, they have dark vision and are resistant to charm magic and immune to sleep-inducing magic. They do not experience exhaustion as most creatures do. The warriors of the Shadar Kai, known as Shadow Dancers, have the ability to teleport between shadows at will. Gloomweavers have innate magic, radiating a weakening aura that affects all beasts and humanoids around them except other Shadar Kai. When injured, they can reflexively turn invisible and teleport away. They also possess several magical abilities such as Arcane Eye, Mage Armor, and Speak with Dead, as well as Arcane Gate, Bane, Compulsion, Confusion, and True Sight. They are Warlock-type spellcasters. Soulmongers are the deadliest Shadar Kai, combining strong magic and melee skills. They can radiate a wave of weariness, damaging any creature not strong enough to resist it. They have a constant aura that slows any creature around them. Soulmongers are resistant to most spells and magical effects, and when they kill or knock out a creature, they can heal and strengthen themselves. They also possess innate spell-like abilities such as Chill Touch and Poison Spray at will, and are known to cast Curse, Chain Lightning, Finger of Death, Gaseous Form, and Phantasmal Killer. Shadar Kai typically wear studded leather armor and wield weapons infused with necrotic energy. Shadow Dancers use spiked chains to trip and entangle enemies, teleporting around and using every dim nook and corner as a hiding spot. They are described as fighting living darkness, trapping their victims before others help finish the job. Afterwards, they loot corpses for bright and colorful trinkets to keep them and return to the Shadowfell. Gloomweavers, although formidable, prefer to remain hidden and watch as their dark aura torments their victims with a sense of approaching death. If detected, they use magic to reduce their foes to ghastly corpses. Shadar Kai society is shaped by their curse to serve the Raven Queen. They are often too terrified to willingly enter the Fortress of Memories and choose instead to dwell in communities outside it. They prepare visitors who seek the Queen's guidance, advising them on what to expect from her trials. When the Raven Queen requires the Shadar Kai to retrieve something, she sends ravens as guides. The Shadar Kai follow these birds across the plains to their destination, where they use their shadow magic to retrieve trinkets or extract memories and emotions from their targets. If a victim is near death, the Shadar Kai capture the soul and present it to the Raven Queen. They are especially interested in the silt at the bottom of the river Styx, as it holds the memories taken by the river. Any Shadar Kai who retrieves even a vial of this silt draws the attention of the others, who may try to bargain for it or steal it. Shadar Kai are nearly immortal. When they die, the Raven Queen draws their souls back to the Shadowfell and resurrects them. They view death as a temporary condition and are typically indifferent to the physical form they inhabit. They continue to reenact old rituals and ceremonies within their communities, although these are only pale imitations of their former grandeur. The Shadar Kai's origins are believed to trace back to the Raven Queen's failed attempt to ascend to divinity. Originally an elven kingdom from the Feywild, the Shadar Kai participated in a ritual to pledge their souls and magic to their queen. The goal was for her to enter Arvandor and end the conflict between Corlon and Lolth that threatened to tear the Seldarine apart. However, the ritual was corrupted by evil wizards and trapped the queen and her followers in the Shadowfell, where their souls remained bound to the increasingly mad and grief-stricken Raven Queen. Another group, also known as Shadar Kai, sometimes called the Shadow Fae, are graceful, slender humanoids who stand a little taller than humans yet weigh slightly less. Their skin is ashen gray, their eyes are dark, and their bodies are covered in intricate tattoos, scars, and piercings. Shadows cling to their clothing, and they slip from sight simply by stepping into dimness. Although they once walked the forests and glades of the world with the carefree hearts of other Fae, their souls now labor under a relentless shadow curse that forever tries to drag them into the plane of shadow. Day to day, a shadow Fae feels a gnawing emptiness that breeds bitterness and desperation. They cling fiercely to one another, showing a loyalty as intense as it is painful. Tenderness rarely survives among them, so companionship often takes the form of shared ordeals and ritual scarification. Each generation has grown more willing to commit cruelty in the hope of staving off the curse a little longer, yet most eventually succumb and retreat to the plane of shadow, where the emptiness numbs every remaining passion they have. The curse also shapes their abilities. Every Shadow Fae moves with uncanny stealth, blending into the faintest gloom, and their superior low-light vision pierces darkness where other folk stumble blind. They wield shadow and illusion magic with natural ease, and many train as rogues, assassins, or shadow dancers, while the more studious become shadow mages who weave complex phantasms and umbral energies. A favorite weapon is the spiked chain, prized for its reach, versatility, and the lingering pain it inflicts. The shadow curse itself hangs over all aspects of their lives. Each time a shadow fae grows dazed, stunned, or otherwise weakened, a sliver of their soul slips towards the plane of shadow, leaving their body and spirit dulled. Severe losses eventually force the sufferer across the planar veil, where the symptoms ease but the lost fragments are never restored. Only powerful magic, such as miracle, wish, or a powerful restoration performed within the plane of shadow, can knit their soul back together. To hold to the material world more tightly, Shadar seek vivid sensation. Moments of pure joy are rare, so many turn instead to extreme pain, carving their own flesh with cold iron blades to feel anything. In combat, they favor subtlety and ambush. They melt into darkness, strike from hiding, and vanish before an enemy can rally, bleeding opponents through a dozen small engagements rather than risking a pitched battle. Should foes exploit the curse by stunning or knocking them senseless, a Shadar band withdraws instantly, knowing further resistance only hastens their doom. Their cities are few and hidden, carved into cliff faces or rising as slender towers in deep forests. These once elegant communities now stand half in ruin, ruled by powerful illusionists who cloak themselves in veils of unreality and patrol them with shadow mastiffs. Beyond these enclaves, many Shadar live in predatory bands of fewer than 50, haunting the edges of other settlements where shadows abound. Even there, only a small fraction of their population remains on the material plane, most having taken refuge already in the plane of shadow, where they eke out a bleak existence in dim replicas of their former homes, endlessly hunting intruders and scouring legends for any hint of a cure. To resist their curse, Shadar craft specialized magic. Gal-Ralan armbands of cold iron pierce the wearer's skin with tiny needles, anchoring the soul to their flesh through constant pain. Blackstone runes allow limited passage between the planes, offering respite when the burden grows too heavy. Vials of liquid night plunge an area into starlit darkness, letting a shadow fae vanish in an eye blink, while shadowlight oil burns with only the faintest glow, preserving their stealth. Shadow fae rarely interact with other creatures except to deceive or exploit them. Sometimes they train shadow snakes and shadow mastiffs. Other fae treat them as pariahs, although redcaps and certain malicious spirits find common cause with them. Their bitterest feud is with the Dark Ones, a hatred so profound that scholars suspect some ancient betrayal at the root of it. Long ago, before recorded history, shadow fae seers divined that rising mortal civilizations would ravage the natural world. Seeking to forestall that inevitable doom, 100 master sages forged a pact with a power on the plane of shadow and began a ritual meant to draw perpetual twilight across the land. When the spell neared completion, mortal champions stormed the Nexus and sacrificed themselves to shatter the rite. The backlash slew countless shadow fae and scattered the survivors, but it did not break the bond they had forged. Instead, the spell reversed, chaining every shadow fae soul to the dark plane and birthing the shadow curse that endures to this day. In later centuries, scattered bands of shadow fae have sought aid wherever they can. Some bargain with drow in half-shadowed cities, trading servitude for arcane shelter. Others enter pacts with cults of night or draconic overlords, always hoping to mend their fractured spirits. None have yet found a lasting remedy, and so the Shadar also known as the Shadow Fae, press on, slipping through the world like living silhouettes, masters of gloom, prisoners of their own shadows, forever searching for a way to reclaim the light that they once held dear. Evernight is the grim reflection of Neverwinter, situated within the Shadowfell. It is a city primarily inhabited by undead and those who associate closely with them, deranged necromancers, slave merchants, and devotees of sinister deities. The city lies perpetually in a state of decay, its wood and stone structures drained of vitality, crumbling and rotting as if their essence has been consumed. Alleys and side streets are paved with dry grave dirt, ground fine underfoot, while the occasional cobblestone roads are riddled with potholes. The air feels damp and clammy, chilled by a persistent wind beneath a permanently gray sky. Silence prevails throughout most districts, broken only occasionally by distant, anguished screams of pain or terror. Certain areas within Evernight pulse strongly with necromantic energy, dimming nearby lights, making the air colder and unnaturally still, drawing undead entities and weakening mortal creatures by draining their vitality. These ambient necromantic forces also suppress the hunger of undead inhabitants, enabling them to conduct their daily routines without constantly seeking flesh and blood. Evernight maintains connections to Neverwinter on the material plane through portals known as Crevices of Dusk. These unpredictable dimensional gaps facilitate frequent interactions between the two realms, allowing Evernight's undead to abduct living victims from Neverwinter. Such abductions give rise to Neverwinter's urban myths about disappearances and haunted encounters. Evernight is controlled by an elite ruling caste composed of intelligent ghouls. The city is governed by a tribunal made up of exceptionally powerful and ancient ghouls and ghasts, many of whom are former spellcasters or followers of Orcus. This tribunal holds the authority to grant living individuals official citizenship, marking them as protected from consumption by other undead. The tribunal also oversees foreign relations, firmly enforcing Evernight's neutrality amid competing undead factions. The nearest equivalent to a courthouse or civic building in Evernight is the House of Screams. No formal laws exist within the city, although openly starting fights or attempting to free slaves and captives typically results in immediate retaliation by hordes of hungry undead. When conflicts or disputes are brought before the tribunal for judgment, their verdict is delivered by devouring whichever party seems less deserving. Due to this brutal system, citizens rarely seek the tribunal's assistance unless absolutely necessary. Often conflicts are settled without involving the tribunal, either through authorized fights to the death held beneath the House of Screams, or by appealing to the priests at the Temple of Filth. These priests typically demand compensation for their judgments through services performed for their temple. Evernight remains extremely perilous for visitors. Living beings who have not been officially granted citizenship by the tribunal are generally regarded as viable prey by the undead populace unless they have the explicit protection of a powerful citizen, hold a role viewed as essential to the city's operations, or carry special tokens provided exclusively to visiting merchants. Despite this risk, undead citizens rarely attack living visitors on sight, presuming no mortal would be crazy enough to enter Evernight without a legitimate purpose, although undead residents freely challenge mortals to produce evidence of their right to be present, often on trivial grounds. Living humanoids captured within the city are seldom immediately consumed. Generally, they are forced to take part in elaborate mock funerals. The city is located at the western terminus of the Shadowfell Road, occupying a critical crossroads within the Shadowfell and serving as a major hub of commerce on the plain. The city primarily imports living beings. The fortunate ones become slaves, while the unfortunate are used as food. Evernight hosts several markets, but its commercial heart is the corpse market. On the surface, it resembles any bustling bazaar, yet its vendors peddle body parts, blood, slaves, zombie servants, and countless other unnatural wares. Nearby lies a district of heavily guarded workshops and storehouses. Most transactions in Evernight involve gold coins, although trades in favors or flesh are not uncommon. The city's population of flesh-eaters and blood drinkers act as a natural deterrent to most living threats. For the more dangerous undead or rogue necromancers, the priests of the Temple of Filth secretly safeguard a powerful doomsday weapon. This artifact emits radiant energy as intense as the noonday sun on Toril, instantly annihilating most undead and severely harming even the strongest. It rests within a hidden shrine deep within the Temple of Filth, shielded by powerful rituals, deadly traps, and cursed doors. Prior to the time of troubles, the gods Baal and Mirkul had worshippers within Evernight. However, by the late 15th century, only the oldest undead in the city still recalled when these gods held influence. Similarly, none remembered a time before the enigmatic castle Nowhere appeared, with most assuming that it had always existed in the city. The Shadowvar were known to maintain diplomatic relations with Evernight, even before their formal return to Faerun in 1372. Evernight held diplomatic ties with Thay after it transformed into a nation dominated by necromancers and developed an interest in controlling the Shadowfell Road in the 15th century. The Thayans acquired the rights to establish an outpost within the city in exchange for shipments of humanoid slaves and corpses. In 1451, Mount Hotenau erupted on Toril, and its counterpart in the Shadowfell erupted simultaneously. However, rather than the devastating pyroclastic flow that struck Neverwinter, Evernight experienced a slower, continuous flow of lava that followed and replaced the riverbed, evaporating its waters but inflicting little damage on the city beyond destroying a few piers. By 1479, tensions between Netheril and Thay became a source of significant concern for Evernight school leadership. As a result, the ruling tribunal prohibited open hostilities between the two factions within the city's limits. Nevertheless, clandestine conflicts and covert battles between the Netherese and Thayan operatives continued beneath the surface. The Corpse Market is the primary marketplace of the city of Evernight. It specializes in the sale and exchange of bodies in all conditions, alive, dead, or undead. Covering several city blocks in every direction, the market is filled with closely packed shops, stalls, and street merchants, separated by shabby canvas sheets. Despite its drab and washed-out appearance, torchlight illuminates the area. The market reverberates with merchants loudly advertising their goods, each one striving to overpower their competitors' shouts, making it the loudest and most vibrant location in Evernight. These merchants, primarily undead themselves, sell bodies and body parts intended as food for other undead inhabitants. They also provide supplies of all kinds, ranging from basic equipment to specialized necromantic materials, and zombie servants available for rental. Customers crowd the stalls and aisles, predominantly ghouls, skeletons, and vampires, with only a rare living visitor among them. One section of the corpse market is dominated by a sizable auction block constructed of bone and aged wood. Here, living humanoids are auctioned off either as slaves or food. Merchants auctioning captives are responsible for drawing their own crowds and attracting buyers. Any attempts to disrupt the auctions provoke immediate and severe retaliation from the entire marketplace. The corpse market occupies a walled district in the southern part of Evernight, directly adjoining the graveyard on its western side. Its location overlaps closely with the main graveyard of Neverdeath in Neverwinter on the Prime Material. It is widely known in Evernight that the planar boundary here is particularly thin and fractured, allowing some undead creatures occasional opportunities to reach across to Neverwinter and seize new victims. The corpse market specializes in providing food for undead residents who are either too busy or too idle to hunt their own. Offerings include not only live humanoids, but also prepared meat and preserved body parts favored by ghouls, along with blood stored for vampires. Blood merchants are known to sell their product in jars or enchanted decanters made of ceramic or glass, and high-end vendors offer blood sourced according to very specific preferences, categorized by species, age, gender, social status, and magical affinity. Sangora Sanguinaries is one of the most renowned shops specializing in blood in the multiverse. The market also sells undead grafts, animated body parts intended for attachment to living or undead beings. These grafts range from limbs designed to provide extra strength to internal organs that grant limited special abilities drawn from creatures like liches, mummies, or vampires. For an additional fee, certain merchants even offer the intricate and blasphemous rituals required to successfully attach the parts. The most famous of these specialists is a mad vampire surgeon named Sanjos Iridan. General supplies are abundant in the market, ranging from mundane items, tools, weapons, and material scavenged from slain humanoids to peculiar luxuries like dead floral arrangements, ornate canopic jars, rotting burial garments, and jewelry displayed upon severed hands. Necromancers visiting the market can obtain specialized items necessary for their craft, such as rare samples of blood and bone, profane holy symbols, and freshly gathered grave dust essential to their rituals. The corpse market offers undead servants for hire as well. Zombie workers or porters are known to be rented at a rate of around 10 gold per day, with an additional deposit that involves the temporary removal and preservation of a chunk of the renter's own flesh, reattached only upon the zombie's safe return. Sentient undead residents occasionally hire themselves out as guides, either for payment or personal amusement. Visitors can pay these guides to explore Evernight or answer questions, although accurate information is never guaranteed. For example, Sangora of Sangora Sanguinaries offers directions or information at around 20 gold per inquiry, or sometimes demands reciprocal information as payment. Hiring guides for journeys outside the city are known to typically start around 100 gold per day, but increase with greater distance or danger, and does not ensure the guides aid in battle nor their overall loyalty. Some specially gifted undead guides, possessing a unique sense for death and undeath, are available to help locate specific remains or locations at a minimum cost of 200 gold per day. By the late 15th century, the corpse market is known to have become as bustling and busy as any marketplace on Toril. Among its most notable patrons is a mysterious living figure known as the Resurrectionist, who regularly spends hours carefully inspecting bodies and body parts in his ongoing quest to find the remains of a particular individual long deceased. Lamantha's Mortuary is a business owned by the necromancer Lamantha. Her primary services include the preparation of bodies or body parts as decorative items, trophies, tools, or even as sporting equipment for undead clients. Lamantha also prepares living humanoids to be consumed in the ritualistic funerals conducted by Evernight's undead citizens within the graveyard. Because Evernight's undead value Lamantha's services, her mortuary remains one of the few relatively safe locations where living visitors can find shelter as of 1479, provided they earn her permission. The Black Mound is an exclusive neighborhood located in the southwestern corner of Evernight, atop a small rise overlooking the lava flowing into the nearby sea. Steam rises frequently where molten rock meets the cold water, enveloping the area in mist and fog. Homes and manors situated on the Black Mound are notably larger and occasionally more opulent than the buildings found elsewhere in the city, although they remain just as decrepit and filthy. The neighborhood is inhabited primarily by some of Evernight's most influential undead residents, particularly the intelligent ghouls and the members of the ruling tribunal. These powerful residents expect deference from the city's other dwellers, particularly prevailing in disputes with outsiders. Lesser undead or visitors unfamiliar with Evernight are frequently stopped and interrogated if seen loitering in Black Mound. The Demon Pit is a seemingly bottomless chasm located in the city of Evernight. It occupies the same position as the chasm does within Evernight's counterpart city, Neverwinter. The Demon Pit is somewhat smaller than its material plane equivalent, but it radiates even stronger necromantic energies than usual for the Shadowfell. Around it, lights appear dimmer, the temperature feels significantly colder, and undead creatures are drawn toward it, empowered by its presence. Conversely, living beings near the pit rapidly become fatigued by its draining aura. When the chasm first appeared in Neverwinter during the ruining, its shadowy reflection simultaneously formed in Evernight. The city's undead inhabitants, unable to understand or explain this apparently bottomless rift, named it the Demon Pit, believing it to descend directly into the abyss, specifically to the White Kingdom of Dorasane. As of 1479, no individual has ever returned from descending into the pit to confirm or deny its supposed connection to the abyss. Despite this uncertainty, worshippers of Orcus and Dorasane regularly throw living sacrifices into the Demon Pit as an offering to their patrons. Evernight's population consists primarily of undead beings. Nearly every kind of corporeal resident resides here, whether intelligent, such as ghouls, ghast, pale reavers, vampires, and wights, or non-intelligent, like zombies. A small minority of the population comprises living humanoids of various races, usually evil-aligned residents or prisoners captured as food sources. The city is also occasionally home to shadow creatures and rare beings like cadaver collectors. Although because of the abundant necromantic energies they have few true needs, many undead citizens imitate their former mortal lifestyles, following the habits and patterns of behavior that they experienced while alive. They have little real use for money, yet some undead continue to engage in crafting, trading, or military roles. Despite the inability to experience genuine luxury, several residents maintain extravagant homes and cling possessively to their material possessions. Most sentient undead in Evernight are driven either by ambition, seeking advancement or favor with more influential residents, or by boredom, pursuing various gruesome entertainments. These pastimes include violent mock battles, hunting living prey for sport, macabre puppet performances featuring humanoid corpses, or sporting events that use limbs or other body parts as equipment. Mindless undead, on the other hand, merely wander the city streets until ordered otherwise. Whatever the activity, Evernight is characterized by silence, as even undead capable of speech rarely find conversation necessary. The city's undead inhabitants primarily worship Orcus and Dorasane, performing blasphemous rituals at the Temple of Filth, singing grotesque hymns of triumph, and regularly making sacrifices by casting living creatures into the Demon Pit. Gloomwrought is another city located in the Shadowfell, although not nearly as much is known about it. The city is governed by Prince Roland, a human nobleman. Other merchant nobles also hold influence, although they care primarily about themselves rather than the city. Hidden groups exert subtle control within Gloomwrought, such as the mysterious Keepers, and their authority and goals remain unclear. Several deities important to the history of Toril reside in the Shadowfell. Null is the draconic deity of death and undeath, manifesting in two distinct aspects, the Reaver and the Guardian of the Lost. As the Reaver, also known as Falazur, he embodies predation and death, revered particularly by evil dragons who take lives and receive his blessings. As the Guardian of the Lost, also called chronepsis on other planes and worlds. He guides the souls of deceased dragons to the dragon Eyrie, protecting them from their enemies even in the afterlife. In appearance, Null consistently manifests as a deep, impenetrable shadow shaped like a dragon. According to legend, his mere touch instantly brings death. When he speaks, his voice resembles the dry, rasping cloak of an undead being. Null's primary divine realm is said to be atop Dragon Eyrie, uncontested by other draconic gods due to his dominion over draconic death. Null is known to maintain additional domains, including mausoleums located in Carceri, the Outlands, the Plane of Shadow, and the Negative Energy Plane. Null is prideful, fatalistic, and profoundly arrogant. Humorless and aloof, he does not anger easily, but once offended, he harbors everlasting grudges. Even minor slights, whether real or imagined, are never forgotten, festering into eternal hatred. Followers commonly believe Null to be the offspring of Osgaroth himself, making him the brother of both Bahamut and Tiamat. During the time of troubles, Null approached the cult of the dragon in an attempt to counter Tiamat's growing influence among their ranks. Some within the cult whispered that Null aimed to rule the world with the cultists as his vassals, although it's unclear whether Null himself made such a claim. Around 1480, Grisnath, a black dragon and the chosen of Falazur, was sent by Null to destabilize the theocratic nation of Elturgard. Grisnath attempted to convert an orc horde to Falazur's worship, but his plans failed when adventurers killed him. However, some paladins of Torm speculated that Grisnath was subsequently resurrected as an undead servant of Falazur, as his remains were never recovered. Following the Second Sundering, Null reportedly retreated to a hidden lair in the Outlands, leading some to question whether he still retained his divine status at all. Dragons across all alignments, both living and undead, venerate Null due to his dual nature. Good dragons appeal to him to guide their deceased loved ones to peace, while evil dragons seek his blessing in creating undead armies and spreading death. Clerics of Null, known as Annihilists, are primarily dragons or Dracoliches capable of divine spellcasting. Their temples are invariably shadowed caverns or subterranean chambers dimly lit and cloaked in gloom. These temples become graveyards, littered with the remains and treasures of dragons who journeyed there to die. Spectral dragons and other undead entities guard these places fiercely. Two prominent centers of worship include the Well of Dragons, an enormous natural amphitheater east of Skull Gorge visited by countless dragons preparing for death, believed to contain Null's own lair, and the Crypt of Dragons, an extensive underground tomb near the Cormyrean town of Hilp, dedicated specifically to Null's aspect as Guardian of the Lost. Null's teachings diverge according to his dual aspects. The Guardian of the Lost emphasizes that death is inevitable and acts as the gateway to a new form of existence, while true death represents an absolute and final ending. The Reaver preaches embracing death's omnipresence and inevitability, urging dragons to incorporate elements of decay and undeath into their daily lives to achieve true strength and power. His followers focus heavily on necromantic research and philosophical explorations of mortality. Significant rites include the Drawing Down ceremony, conducted monthly during the waning moon to send dragon spirits peacefully to the Guardian of the Lost. Followers of the Reaver conduct nullification during total solar eclipses, embarking on violent rampages across Faerun. The individual responsible for causing the greatest number of mortal casualties becomes the Worm of Death, serving as Null's high priest until the next eclipse. The Guardian of the Lost remains mostly neutral, having few alliances and fewer enemies, although he shares a certain understanding with Labalas and Noreth. As the Reaver, however, Null actively despises his siblings, Bahamut and Tiamat. Although once allied with Tiamat, a mysterious and ancient dispute drove them into perpetual enmity. Null also relentlessly hunts the trickster dragon goddess Lal, driven by an ancient grievance over a prank she once played on him. Likewise, he despises Tamara for her interference with death's inevitability. His only recorded ally is the late demigod Kalza-Reynad, whose death prompted Null to seek other powerful figures. After Kalza-Reynad's passing, Null was rumored to have inherited the secrets of creating Dracoliches. Mask is the intermediate deity of shadows, thievery, and formerly intrigue within the Faerunian pantheon. Known as the Lord of Shadows, he is typically worshipped by individuals considered dishonest or of questionable morality. Mask is usually depicted with a velvet black mask tinged with red, symbolizing secrecy and stealth, and he aligns as either chaotic evil or neutral evil. Avatars of Mask appearing within his temples usually take the form of a slim human male dressed in soft gray leather armor, a black cloak, and his signature mask. Because of the consistency of this appearance, scholars believe this represents his true or preferred guise. Alternatively, he does sometimes manifest as a soft-spoken human woman with pale, glowing skin, floor-length dark hair, and eyes shining like white stars. In this form, he walks barefoot, shrouded in shadowy gloom. However, in public or outside temples, Mask assumes countless forms, appearing as any race, gender, age, or build, always moving without sound or leaving tracks. Mask is reserved, clever, and perpetually scheming, often delivering mocking remarks with detached amusement. After losing his portfolio of intrigue to Cyric, Mask has harbored an intense resentment towards the god of lies and intrigue. This loss has forced Mask to become more direct and less subtle in his dealings, although he still strongly prefers cunning and subtle manipulation over overt actions. He delights in eavesdropping, possessing the ability to perfectly mimic any voice he has heard, and he uses this ability to deceive mortals or impersonate the recently deceased. Mask wields a pair of enchanted longswords, named Stealth Whisper and Shadowblade, further emphasizing his mastery of stealth and combat in darkness. His divine realm, called Shadowkeep, is notoriously difficult to reach, always cloaked in heavy, disorienting fog that misleads visitors. Some report that it is in Hades, while others report it is in the plane of Shadow. Historically, Mask tends to be solitary, preferring isolation over the company of other deities, although he previously maintained close alliances with Bane, united in mutual opposition to Cyric. He actively opposes Joaquin, the goddess of merchants, and is similarly at odds with deities representing honesty, duty, and light, particularly Selûne, whose moonlight often interferes with his followers' clandestine operations. He maintains a practical, transactional alliance with Veyron, the drow god of thievery, yet secretly Mask has always sought to replace his lost divinity by eventually consuming Veyron's power. The symbols and titles of Mask, the Lord of Shadows, and Veyron, the Lord of Shadow, are often confused among surface dwellers. Followers of Mask, known as Mascarans, believe that wealth belongs to those skilled enough to claim it. Honesty is viewed as naive, but appearing trustworthy can be highly valuable. Mascarans emphasize subtlety, cunning, deception, and skill over brute force. They address each other as Brother Shadow or Sister Shadow, regardless of their ranks. Elite specialty priests are known as Demarchs or Demarchises. Those who successfully perform especially challenging heists or complex manipulations are admitted into the Circle of the Grey Ribbon. Despite Mask's neutral evil alignment, his shrines notably radiate chaos, reflecting the more unpredictable elements of his doctrine. The Church's teachings encourage stealth, trickery, and subtle manipulation. His followers believe that darkness shelters them from harm, and that truth is a folly best left to others. They advocate stealing only what is needed, yet paradoxically also believe that possession itself signifies rightful ownership. During the time of troubles, Mask famously took the form of a sword named Godsbane, eventually coming into the hands of Cyric. Following these events, Mask sought revenge by unleashing Kezef the Chaos Hound to hunt Cyric. However, the Hound betrayed Mask, injuring him severely and compelling Mask to wield Houndsbane, a gift from Mystra, for his own defense. In 1374, Mask sacrificed himself and surrendered his divinity to Shar, repaying a millennia-old debt to her. At that time, Shar revealed Mask's true name to be Lesanor. Portions of Mask's divinity, stolen by Kesenrel, were later absorbed by Erebus Kale, Jurassic Riven, and Prince Rivelin Tonthul of the Shade Enclave. Erebus Kale subsequently sacrificed himself to the archdevil Mephistopheles, who absorbed Kale's portion of Mask's divinity. After Mask's apparent demise, hints suggested his eventual return or resurrection. Notably, he orchestrated the birth and protection of Kale's son during the Spell Plague. Jurassic Riven, once Mask's trusted servant, later ascended as a demigod and prophesied Mask's return. The prophecy was fulfilled when Mask's scattered divinity, portions consumed by Shar and Kesenrel, were reunited within Jurassic Riven, restoring Mask's power, thwarting Shar's cycle of night, and stripping Mephistopheles and Rivelin Tonthul of their stolen divine essences. Shar, known as the Mistress of the Night and the Lady of Loss, is the goddess of darkness and night in the Faerunian pantheon, and the malevolent twin sister and counterpart to the moon goddess Selûne. She embodies darkness, forgetfulness, loss, and night, having also taken over dominions of caverns, dungeons, and the Underdark after killing the underground deity Ibrandul. Long ago, during the era of ancient Netheril, Shar also held domains of hatred, sleep, nightmares, illusions, lies, trickery, hiding, betrayal, seduction, thievery, murder, and winter, but these have since passed to other deities. Shar represents darkness, both physical and metaphorical, the unseen shadows within hearts, minds, and souls. Her domain includes dark places, actions carried out in darkness, secrets, hidden suffering, loss, and the desire for oblivion. She created the Shadow Weave, a counterpart to Mistral's Weave, which later collapsed alongside it during the Spell Plague. Depictions in religious artwork portray Shar as a darkly beautiful human woman dressed entirely in black swirling garments, her hair long and raven black. In ancient Netheril, her portrayal included skin of black or purple hues and a cloak flowing into shadow. Her large haunting eyes are solid purple, with black pupils reflecting an eternal void, and her rare smiles appear cold as the night itself. When appearing to mortals in dreams, her hair moves independently, unaffected by gravity or wind. An alternative depiction is a simple black sphere edged in rushing purple flames, typically shown as magically animated. When Shar appears physically, she favors two avatars. The Night Singer avatar is exceptionally tall, enveloped entirely in a great hooded cloak merging with surrounding darkness. Her face remains hidden behind a feathered mask, vanishing into shadow. She communicates exclusively through sorrowful, hauntingly beautiful songs, compelling listeners either into obedience or despair. The other avatar, the Dark Dancer, appears as a tall, lithe woman with jet black skin, shimmering like starlight, wearing minimal clothing. Her hypnotic eyes hold powerful magic, and her graceful, seductive dances charm mortals into complete obedience. Shar's existence itself is paradoxical. Born at the creation of realm space, she represents the void and absolute nothingness that preceded all existence. Longing for a return to non-existence, she seeks the downfall of order and the undoing of all reality. Defined by loss, despair, hidden grudges, and vengeful desires, Shar delights in secrecy, concealment, and hidden pain, employing temptation, deception, and manipulation to achieve her destructive goals. Unlike the goddess Lyra, who governs deceit, Shar specifically embodies secrecy and concealment. Shar's evil runs exceptionally deep, driven by intense jealousy and petty hatred. From the shadows, she continuously plots against creation itself, viewing even her most devout followers merely as pawns. Although Shar presents herself as a healer who aids grieving individuals by encouraging them to forget, she truly enjoys inflicting and intensifying their sorrow, nurturing bitterness, regret, and a desire for vengeance. She teaches cynicism, fostering disbelief in goodness, whether in the world or in oneself. Shar's avatars possess formidable magical abilities. As Night Singer, she summons perpetual darkness instantly and strikes devastatingly with her hand. Her touch causes memory loss or even death. Her mournful song can drain minds or slay outright. The Dark Dancer uses potent charm magic. Her spells are irresistible, and her kiss forces mortal obedience or causes immediate death. Accepting her touch enslaves mortals to her will completely, breaking free only by powerful magical means. Shar rarely manifests avatars directly, usually appearing as writhing tendrils of shadow radiating purple auras, occasionally featuring a single watchful purple eye. These tendrils communicate directly with her followers, indicating paths or important information, and their touch numbs pain, enabling followers to push beyond their natural limits until death. She sends these dark tentacles, undead beholders known as Doom Tyrants, or shadowy monsters, as messengers or agents of her will. Shar perceives all hidden betrayals, secrets, or destructive acts done in darkness and can instantly conjure magical items that conceal truths or produce darkness. Shar rules over darkness found in empty spaces between stars and shadows hidden so deep that even Mask avoids them. She is the creator and guardian of the Shadow Weave, a dark magic she formed from emptiness and disturbing secrets, able to corrupt any who wield it. Because she created it, she can deny access to its power to anyone, mortal or deity alike. Shar remains locked in eternal conflict with her sister Selûne, the goddess of the moon. Their rivalry manifests in the cycle of the night sky, with darkness overtaking the moon at each new moon, symbolically killing Selûne before the moon is reborn again. Shar rarely attacks Selûne directly, preferring instead to hurt those her sister loves, especially Selûne's followers. Against other deities, Shar is subtle, preferring to quietly convert their mortal followers. Occasionally, however, she strikes openly, as she did when she killed the god Ibrandul to claim his domains. Shar's primary divine realm is called the Palace of Loss, an inaccessible tower in Hades or in the Plane of Shadow, depending on the source. Shar is known to imprison within it individuals who cherish freedom, savoring their despair while permitting worshippers and petitioners to freely enter or exit. After creating the Shadowfell, Shar established a new realm called the Towers of Night, located atop its tallest mountain amidst the shadowy terrain of black sand. This new residence, grander than the Palace of Loss, connects easily to the Shadowfell and houses deities such as Talona, Seth, and Zahir. Her old palace has become the foundation of Loss, providing a pathway to her new domain. In combat, Shar is said to use 2 magically enhanced short swords, skillfully wielded, as well as a chakram-like weapon called the Disc of the Night, enchanted to return swiftly to her hand after being thrown. Shar maintains alliances with other gods cautiously. Talona, the goddess of poison, is her regular ally, potentially out of mutual benefit against Loviatar, Talona's rival. Historically, Shar also allied with Jergal, former god of death, and briefly entertained ties with his successors Mirkul and Kelemvor, although ideological differences have complicated these relations. Other past allies include destructive gods such as Koza and Moander, as well as Targus, who was romantically infatuated with and manipulated by Shar. Beirun, the drow god of shadow magic, collaborates closely with Shar due to a shared interest in expanding their knowledge. Even Shivarash, the elven god of vengeance, became close to Shar, which troubled the other elven gods. Her primary holy symbol is a black disc ringed with deep purple. In ancient Netheril, she also had symbols representing a purple eye outlined in black and a black cowled hunting cloak. Shar is worshipped by those who seek to forget emotional pain, grief, bitterness, and betrayal. Blind individuals, especially those who became blind later in life, the mentally ill, depressed, nihilistic, or narcissistic, might seek Shar's guidance. Despite warning from priests of good-aligned gods, many desperate individuals turn to Shar and her clergy, who exploit rather than soothe their pain. Those who operate secretly in darkness, thieves, murderers, and others wishing to conceal their misdeeds, often pay homage to her. Even neutral individuals working in darkness, like miners or those who have lost things, may seek her favor. Her worship extends beyond humans, embraced by goblinoids and other subterranean and nocturnal beings. Under the identity of Ibrandul, she continues to receive worship from all of his former followers. Shar's clergy operates secretly and subversively, hidden within cities where her worship is outlawed. In addition to clerics, Shar commands the Order of the Dark Moon, a collection of elite sorcerer monks adept at using the Shadow Weave. Shar's worshippers also historically included the lower classes of ancient Netheril, particularly those who fled to the Plane of Shadow after Karsus's catastrophic attempt to seize divine power. She is particularly revered by practitioners of shadow magic who draw upon the Shadow Weave that she created. Believers in the Dark Moon heresy regard Shar and Selûne not as separate goddesses, but as 2 aspects of the same deity. Additionally, the she-spider cult of Thay tries to merge the worship of Shar and Lolth, but both goddesses reject this attempt, and this has left the cult without any divine support. According to ancient myths of creation, after Eo formed the universe in its crystal sphere, only the primordial chaos existed, an endless, timeless void filled with misty shadows. Within the void moved the Shadavari, 13 enigmatic lords of shadow. Eventually, 2 goddesses emerged from this essence, Shar and her twin sister Selûne. They are identical yet opposite, Shar raven-haired and dark, Selûne silver-haired and luminous. Initially inseparable, they formed a unity known as the Two-Faced Goddess, or the Sisters Who Were One, and together they brought order to the chaos. The sisters created Abaltoril and other heavenly bodies, imbuing them with life and birthing the goddess Chante, who embodies all physical matter in these worlds. Chante asked the Two-Faced Goddess for warmth to sustain life, causing Shar and Selûne to separate for the first time due to conflicting views about nurturing life. Their dispute ignited the eternal war of light and darkness. During their cosmic battle, the first deities of magic, war, murder, disease, death, and others spontaneously formed from the energies unleashed by their conflict. Selûne then reached beyond the universe, painfully retrieving a fragment of eternal flame from another plane, igniting the sun and giving warmth to Chante's worlds. Enraged by the actions of her sister, Shar retaliated fiercely, extinguishing Selûne's light and weakening her sister significantly. To protect life, Selûne tore away part of her divine essence and hurled it at Shar, severely wounding both goddesses. Their combined energies coalesced into Mistral, the first goddess of magic. Initially siding with Selûne, Mistral tried to balance the conflict and imposed a temporary peace. Shar retreated into the darkness for many ages, while Selûne, gravely injured, endured cycles of diminished and restored power, supported by alliances with other deities. Shar gradually regained her strength, aided by the Shadowvari, and vowed eternal vengeance. Life thrived under Shantae's watchful care. When the primordials threatened these newly created worlds, Shar and Selûne temporarily united again, defending their creations in what became known as the Dawn War. Additional gods rose during this conflict or arrived from other realms to help battle the primordials. In another era, Shar attempted to reshape Toril into eternal darkness, aided again by the Shadowvari. These beings roam the realms, reducing reality into primal chaos and darkness. However, Azuth, the god of mages and mistress consort, created an illusory shadow realm to trap the Shadowvari. He imprisoned them within the Shadow Star, a shadowy crystal key crafted by Gond, and cast it beyond realm space into distant darkness. In the early 700s, the goddess Bast explored darker indulgences, influenced by Shar. Shar and doctrine entwined with their worship, calling them the Maidens of the Forbidden Fruit. Bast transformed into Sharis, the goddess of lust, her faith gradually declining as her identity faded into despair. By the mid-1300s, Sharis is widely seen as merely an aspect of Shar. Bast appears seemingly on the verge of a complete absorption by the Lady of Loss. During the time of troubles, when magic failed and the gods walked among the mortals, Shar's avatar came to Waterdeep disguised as her sister Selûne. She descended upon the temple called the House of the Moon, greeting Selûne's worshippers and deceiving them into believing that she was truly the Moon Maiden. When Luna, the genuine avatar of Selûne, confronted her, Shar trapped Luna temporarily and defeated her using the temple priest's wand of the Four Moons. Luna was imprisoned and Shar threatened to drive her mad before killing her. Assuming Selûne's identity, she took control of the temple, residing comfortably as its honored guest. Meanwhile, Luna remained a prisoner, systematically manipulated and confused until her spirit broke. Forgetting her true identity, she was transformed into a loyal follower of the false Selûne, joining a fanatical sect called the Lunatics. At a grand party at Castle Waterdeep held to honor the supposed avatar of Selûne, Shar was attacked by agents of her own followers, the Dark Army of the Night, who mistakenly believed she was genuinely Selûne. After easily defeating them, Shar withdrew briefly but was confronted by Kiriani, who saw through the deception. A battle ensued which exposed Shar's aggressive nature, and although Kiriani was captured, doubt spread among Waterdeep's nobility. Luna's allies eventually infiltrated the temple and, after a series of confrontations, managed to break through Luna's confusion. Naniatha, the temple's high priestess, questioned Shar's actions and was nearly killed, but managed to distract the goddess long enough for Luna and her friends to escape. Shar then destroyed Luna's inn, Selûne's Smile, using her powerful Rod of Oblivion, and ambushed the fleeing heroes. Powerless and vulnerable, Luna was nearly destroyed, but her friends released Selûne's divine essence, restoring Luna to her true form as Selûne's avatar. In this form, Luna was able to overcome Shar's darkness and destroy the Rod of Oblivion. Elsewhere during the time of troubles, she encountered and killed the lesser god Ibrandul in Undermountain, claiming his domain over the caverns and the Underdark. She uses his identity and followers to secretly subvert worshippers of Selûne. In 1385, Shar supported Siric's plot to murder Mystra, the goddess of magic, causing the spell plague and the catastrophic collapse of both the Weave and Shar's own Shadow Weave. Left without either source of magical power, Shar instead merged the plane of shadow with the energies of the negative energy plane, creating the Shadowfell, a realm she has ruled thereafter. Around 1486, she acted through her servants in Thultanthar and Sembia, attempting to seize control of the Weave during the Second Sundering. Her Shadowvar agents infiltrated various nations, notably attacking Cormyr. Agents of Shar were placed in high-ranking positions, even among the royalty and nobles, causing chaos and weakening the kingdom. Eventually, however, the Shadowvar armies were defeated when Princess Raedra led a successful defense of Suzail, becoming queen after her father's death in battle. Shar's ambitions culminated in 1487 when her agents drained magical energy from Mythals across Faerun, attempting to seize control of the entire Weave. Her servants infiltrated Candlekeep and Mithranor, causing massive destruction. Elminster opposed her directly, ultimately sacrificing the Mythal at Mithranor by causing Thultanthar, the Shadowvar's flying city, to crash upon it. Shar made a personal appearance, but retreated when Mystra manifested to counter her. As a result, Shar lost many of her strongest supporters, the Shadowvar, and most of her control over Sembia and Thultanthar. The Shadowfell occupies a unique position in planar cosmology, functioning as both a physical location and metaphysical concept. Its existence as a dark reflection of the material plane provides an essential counterbalance to the vibrant Feywild, while serving as a conduit between life and death. The entities who claim the Shadowfell, from the immortal Shadar to deities like Null, Mask, and Shar, are drawn to its nature as a realm of transition and secrets. These beings define the plane's character while exploiting its inherent properties for their own purposes. From the ancient Emissari and Netherese to the modern Shadowvar and rogue necromancers across the plains, mortals seeking power through shadow magic invariably discover that the Shadowfell exacts tremendous costs for its gifts. Shades of night are falling and I'm lonely, standing in the corner feeling blue. Planes that are more fun pass me one by one. Guess I'll wind up like I always do. Only me in the Shadowfell, strolling down the avenue. Me in the Shadowfell, not a soul to tell my troubles to. And when it's 12 o'clock, we'll climb the stairs. We will never knock, for nobody's there. It's just me in the Shadowfell, all alone and feeling blue. When the sun sets on the far horizon and the parlor lamps begin to glow, Jim and Jack and John put their slippers on. They're all set, but we're still on the go. So lonely, just me and my shadow, strolling down the avenue. Me and my shadow, not a soul to tell our troubles to. And when it's 12 o'clock, we'll climb the stairs, and we will never knock, for nobody's there. It's just me and my shadow.